All right, welcome to another episode of the Embodied Union podcast. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Lindsay.
And today we're going to talk about healing attachment, like attachment related wounds and triggers in relationship. I am excited.
Let's do it.
It's a really big topic, and I think attachment is a bit of a buzzword.
Yeah, pop psychology, and people just... I just saw on the other day, there's like an Instagram, page just on it.
There are so many.
Yeah, and I guess in a way, to me, it is important to understand this, but it's also not the silver bullet. It's not the only thing.
Yeah, I think what people they get caught up in the fact that it's a buzzword, right? And it's like, I'm anxiously attached, I'm avoidant, or I'm disorganized even. And what I know to be true is that attachment is a spectrum, and you will feel differently in different relationships with different partners. So it's not this fixed thing, like I'm Charlie and I'm anxiously attached. I think, yes, we tend to have one that we lean more into, but I know for myself, I have been extremely avoidant in previous relationships, although I would identify with feeling more anxious and nowadays more secure, but I've danced across that spectrum.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been avoidant.
No, I can't imagine.
It's not my style.
No. So I think the first kind of myth to bust is that, although my background is psychology, I'm not so into the self-diagnosing and the labeling.
Yeah.
It's recognizing...
Coming from a labeling background.
Yeah, coming from a clinical background where labels are handed out like just lollies, they can give a lot of understanding. It can be helpful to identify with something and bring understanding to yourself. It's like, oh, I feel seen, I feel heard, like really resonate with that. But when we become too heavily identified with a label, it's like we're putting ourselves into a box.
Yes, totally.
So I think just acknowledging that attachment as a spectrum is important. And I think the other myth to bust is that you need to be fully feeling secure and healed to be in a secure and healthy relationship. Like a lot of people are really into self-development these days, which is amazing. But the truth is, we were just talking about it before, the deepest healing definitely happens in relationship. Yeah,
you can't, think your way out of it, or I'm going to go away and just work on my own stuff, which we always are. We always are, whether we're in a relationship or not. But it's like, I'm going to go and heal my attachment, and then I'm going to get into a relationship, and I'm going to be so secure.
It's just,
lol.
It's beautiful. But the truth is, you can do some solid self-development and solid healing when you're single. You really can. You can have so much awareness and insight drop, and you can really reframe how you think and feel. But attachment takes two. It's
in
attachment. It's you need someone else to push up against to really take a look at your stuff. If I'm single, I feel cool, calm, and collected. I'm a cucumber. I'm good, And coming into a relationship, it's like, oh, that part of me that can be a little bit anxious can still be present, because it takes having run-ins in relationship for me to be able even to see that part.
Yeah, and I think if people are unknown to this or don't have an understanding of attachment at all, it can be the rudder that steers how your relationships go over and over, and you go, oh, I keep attracting this other person that's just like the last one, and it's got to do with everyone else. And it's like, so got to do with what's going on for you, with how you are in relationship.
I think that's really important that we acknowledge that. In case you don't know what attachment means, it's like the way you feel in relationship towards your attachment figures. So our attachment style, it's developed in childhood. Our attachment figures are typically our primary caregivers, which is typically mum and dad. It's not always. It can be grandparents, it can be foster home, it can be teacher, older brother, whoever it is. But we have primary caregivers that as little humans we're developing an attachment bond to, where we learn about if relationship is safe. And how am I received in relationship? Is the world safe? Is others safe? What can I expect from relationship?
Totally. And I think that, you know, for a lot of people, even the understanding of like, we hear the buzzword also around nervous system and now even this thing around co-regulation, and this is all kind of ties in is because when we're really young, we don't even have a sense of self yet, where we're in relationship with another, and that caregiver, like you say, is our nervous system to attach to. So we almost are our parents' nervous systems when we're young, and that's why we can pick it up so much, whether we want to or not.
For sure. And so when we're little, yes, we're so impacted by caregivers' nervous systems, but I think it could be helpful if we go into like the conditions that really support a little human becoming a secure adult. Because the way I work with this with women, I speak about it, I speak of there being like 5 conditions that if they are present most of the time, no one gets it right 100%, then a little human gets to grow up and be secure. And that is having emotional attunement, feeling like you're valued just for who you are, feeling reassured, feeling safe and protected. And when these 5 things are present more often than not, this supports a really resilient, healthy, secure nervous system. And for most of us, those conditions weren't present as often as they could have been. And so as someone doesn't have to have been the victim of horrendous trauma to have an attachment wounding, like when you're little, as you said, we're so impacted by nervous system around us. So if mum and dad fight a lot, if you have a single parent and they're working a lot, if you don't receive a lot of eye contact when one of your parents is quite anxious, like little things like that.
Families that never hug.
Yeah, where intimacy is kept behind closed doors. Like there's lots of things where you might say, hey, childhood was pretty good, you know, like I got off pretty good. But these little things are impactful on this little nervous system that's deciding, am I safe in the world? Is relationship safe? So that's kind of where it starts and what can get us feeling a little insecure, anxious, avoidant. These are some of the labels that people use. And then there's a 4th, which is disorganized.
Yeah, usually disorganized. I would say I think a lot of people misdiagnose themselves that they are disorganized because they've had the experience of feeling both avoidant and insecure, and that does not mean that they're disorganized.
Not at all.
Disorganized, I honestly think if you would need like clinical observation to be sure. You could take some tests, that sort of thing, great, and have an inkling, but nearly next to nobody that I've ever met is actually disorganized. There's a few that I've met through the work I've done with somatic psychotherapy, and it's through largely from a long period of trauma and high stress in childhood.
It's like chronic, like there was chronic abuse, chronic neglect, chronic stress, and it's where your primary caregiver, the person that is your attachment figure that you go to for safety and care, is also the one that's neglecting you or abusing you. And so I agree, it's kind of like the word narcissist. My ex is a narcissist, my ex is a narcissist, I'm disorganized. It's like, this is why I don't love labels, because they do put us in a box, and rarely are we this one thing. There's so, like, attachment is one piece of a very big pie.
And I think too, just I wasn't sure if it was clear, but from what I understand as well, working with men, there is this tendency that, or what we've heard in the past is, a mother that smothers creates an avoidant man or avoidant boy. And I don't know if in those ones that you mention, just around the parent being like a helicopter, like too much, like it feels like there's too much control, and the kid is like, wants more freedom, feels like their freedom's being taken.
If you wanted to tie that into the 5 conditions, it's not really attunement.
Right.
That child's not being attuned to, and also not being valued for just who they are.
Yeah.
There's too much control there, so attunement is off.
Yeah, okay, good. I just wanted to make that clear because,
I think it's important. So there's lots of ways we can end up with these attachment wounds, and wounds sound so detrimental, but it's like we have attachment wounding, we have reactivity, we have triggers, and for most people what that looks like is either feeling a little bit anxious when it comes to relationship or a little bit avoidant. And then actually most people are secure. Do you know that?
Yeah, it's like
the
a majority.
Over 50% apparently. I don't know who's like, can't reference anything there, but it's like most people actually are secure. But I know for myself, my experience has been feeling extremely insecure and anxious in the past.
Yeah.
And I work with mostly, I think avoidant people, they don't tend to come to this work as often as anxious people do. Anxious people want to get support and get better. Avoidant people, do you work with many avoidant men?
Well, that's what I was talking about this today. It's like in the spiritual, like healing space, it's probably about 10 to 15% men. So I've already like cut off 80% of the market, so to speak. And then out of those, I would say a sliver is avoidant, you know.
Who is actually looking for support.
Is looking for support, yeah. And the guys that are, and especially with the way that I work, it's quite intimate, and Hakomi can be very feminine, is that it's hard for them to like stay. A lot of the time it's like they come in and then they bounce back out, and they come in and they go back out.
Oh,
again.
with their relationship with therapy is avoidant. Yes.
If we get too close, it feels too much, and then they want to pull back. So
absolutely.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And it makes my anxiousness like, have I done something? What is happening here? You know, should I call them? Should I write them a cute letter? You know, like all the things come up.
It's so true though. Like, so we both can put our hand up as like, my name is Charlie and I have predominantly been anxious. Lindsay, same for you, right? So I guess we can talk about what that looks like, paint the picture, because for me, it was pretty typical post a child, like very preoccupied with partner. What are they doing? What are they thinking? Lots of fear around like, am I going to be abandoned? Am I going to be rejected? I would always like have an element of performance, like having sex when I didn't really want to, saying yes when I'm a no, like trying to really secure the connection because I didn't have like a solid sense of worthiness. And it would really play out in relationship if there was ever like rupture, tension, conflict. Like I could not do conflict. You've even seen it. I'm much better, but like really anxious, like get almost to the point of hysterical, like we have to repair right now. I'm not going to put it down. If my partner said, can we just take an hour and come back? Fuck no. There's no way. I'd sit in my room, I'd get more and more mad and more mad and more mad, and just like I would catastrophize like anything that went wrong. It's over. This isn't going to work. Like just, I really resonated with feeling anxious. And I know you said similar to you, but I feel like yours is presented a bit differently.
I did a lot of work prior to this relationship, so.
But even in the past, when you felt anxious, what did it look like?
The same, I think, like not catastrophizing, but I think in the past for me, it was definitely a sense of preoccupation with the other person. What are they doing? What are they up to? Like I felt quite secure in my relationship when we were monogamous, and when we were open relating, it's just like it just caught fire.
I think that's so valid.
Having an anxious attachment and open relating is very difficult. I would say that it's
putting fuel on the fire.
Yeah, I would definitely say that open relating is more for the avoidant.
Definitely more suitable.
Yeah, more suitable. And you know, and can you earn a secure attachment while doing that? While
doing open relating?
I would probably challenge against that because of the amount of dysregulation.
You can't heal trauma with trauma. And so I think for open relating to really be done well, I think the people would have to be quite solid and secure in who they are.
I think so. And I think, you know, if you are anxious and trying to do that with someone that is secure, maybe, but you really got to pick your people that you do it with, you know, that can really hold that as well. And I
know a lot of people say like open relating isn't a way to heal attachment wounds. I'm yet to see that.
I'm yet to see that as well. So yeah, I think so. Like what else would happen? It would be, yeah, definitely feeling insecure, definitely feeling anxious, lots of panic in the body, you know, unsettled, loss of appetite, hard to concentrate, really like struggle. For me personally, it was like, if I'm anxious, it's very hard for me to work.
to get on with the rest of life.
Yeah, it's like the relationship's an important factor. So it's, if you are, if someone identifies as anxious, maybe then, the relationship almost takes precedence over work or themselves,
Yes.
even to a degree, and that can be quite disconcerting.
That was definitely my experience. Like if I was in a fight and there was some space given, it's like I wouldn't be able to focus on anything, And I know this is me in the past, but women, like if you feel anxious, you might text your partner over and over. You might be calling and calling, like crossing boundaries if someone asks for space, and you're just like really, that fear of like, need to be together, need to make sure it's okay, can drive your behavior to kind of cross the other's boundary.
Absolutely, yeah, and I definitely did that in the past, fear and wanting of safety. Not that I knew that back then, because it can come across like, the thing is, being really anxious, you can come across as controlling, and it's not your intention to come across as trying to be controlling, but you're trying to secure safety and create a sense of safety so you can be erratic. Like the men that are anxious can have anger and can be violent and can be those things. I mean, women and men.
Absolutely.
But it's like, it's not from a place of domination. It's from a space of fear.
Absolutely.
So like you might attack somebody or be full on, and it's not because you're trying to be full on. You're trying to like bring some homeostasis, some safety back to the whole thing.
It's a really poor strategy to create safety for yourself. Like I think that's the root of all of it. Like domestic violence, any kind of control or manipulation, it's like we're all just trying to feel safe. So for an avoidant, they create their safety by withdrawing.
Yes.
The anxious clings harder.
Yes, and when those two are together, that's when we can really get a really intense dynamic.
Let's paint that picture. I think that's really important. But before we do, let's kind of give a little bit of context around the avoidant. I know neither of us, that's really been our jam, but I have felt it in the past. But like, how does an avoidant attachment present?
I think in my experience of it is like shut off, like not wanting too much contact, too much connection, not really wanting my freedom taken.
That's really the crux of it. It's once they start to feel like there's a loss of independence, it's just easier to move away from.
Maybe you're not the one for me,
Yeah, there can be an idealistic version of like the one. So they'll find flaws in whoever they're dating. Not it, not it, not it. Again, they're just trying to maximize distance.
Yeah, it can have a focus more on other things to be more important, money, career, those sorts of things, to avoid intimacy because, and this is, to be truthful, the avoidant still wants to be loved and be in relationships so much, but doesn't know how to like deal with the closeness and with the enmeshment of a relationship where you're both connected. It's like, I like you over there and I want you, but I don't want you to like hang off me, and I don't want to be responsible for you.
This is such an important point. It's like, it's the two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
The fear is the same.
Yes.
The fear for the anxious is the same as the fear for the avoidant. It's both around intimacy. It's the same coin. So it's like, they're not so different. It just presents differently.
Yes.
But both are trying to create safety. So that's how they would present. And then for most people, like someone who is secure, which honestly feels like such a win to be like, I'm there, I feel that now, I feel that more often than not. It's someone who's comfortable with intimacy. I'm comfortable with intimacy, warm, open, loving. I can lean in, I can take space. Now if Lindsay and I, if we get into a fight, it's like, all right, I can regulate that dysregulated part. I can give you an hour. I can come back and focus on my life. My life doesn't fall in a shambles because I have this sense of like, I'm grounded.
Yeah.
And
we can spend a day and, I mean, we don't spend a day not texting and like we make agreements, but it's like going away. Like say I'm away for the week in Sydney, you're fine with that. It's just like, for the couples that are listening or the person that's listening that's like, I haven't spent a day away from my partner. I couldn't imagine that.
You want to, like, a secure relationship has space in the togetherness.
Yeah.
It embraces the sovereignty of each individual, and like intimacy is also prioritized. And then just quickly though, just to touch on disorganized, even though it really is something that clinically get an evaluation before just sticking that label on yourself, but it's someone who desperately wants to lean in and desperately wants to pull away at the same time. So you can imagine the kind of freeze response that creates in someone's system who is wanting and is also terrified. Like it creates a lot of disorganization. That would be, it really is a good way to describe how that would feel.
And probably more so, I think, internally, you know, not with the other. Like the disorganized person would probably almost be unlikely to even engage in intimacy or into a relationship because they are so disorganized within themselves.
It's very internal.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
So they're the labels that attachment theory will give you. And the typical, like a very typical dynamic that we see, and I work with this a lot, I've been in this, is when we have someone who is anxious dating someone who is avoidant. And this is, you can call this a trauma bond, and it's a bit of a disaster. And with that said, it definitely provides a very deep opportunity for healing because your stuff is going to come up. However, it will be excruciating, it will be tough, and it does take both, not one, both parties to have a level of awareness that yes, I have this attachment stuff playing out, and yes, I'm willing to work on this and heal it with you. Because the dynamic is, it can be chaos. Imagine having someone leaning in, and someone just withdrawing, and then the one withdrawing comes back, the anxious one can come back in, the avoidant pulls back out. There's a push-pull dynamic.
Yeah.
It's very painful.
Massively painful, and I think, you know, for people that have been in this scenario, I'm sure you're aware, is like the sex is incredible, the connection's really intense, but it's dysfunctional. It brings almost like the worst out in yourself of noticing how, you know, for the anxious leaning in and then eventually goes, well, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to step back. And then for the avoidant to then be like, where'd you go? I'm going to leave. Yeah, I'm going to come on back in.
Yeah.
And then it's just like this
cycle.
Exactly what I was about to say is like, for anyone that's been in this or that isn't sure, it's the looping. It's the fighting and fucking cycle. It's the going around and round. Oh, I'm going to change. I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it different. And it just keeps going on a loop.
This is just, it's insecure attachment patterns in a loop with each other, and this is, it can be worked on.
Oh, absolutely.
It can be worked on in relationship, but it's like most people end up just like in breakdown around it. It can be feels very toxic.
Yeah, well, you've got two people, like you said before, on both sides of the coin here, trying to be in relationship with each other.
Yes.
Probably do like each other.
Yes.
Could be a really good fit, to be honest. But it's, for most people, they don't have the skill of relationship where communication and repair and self-revealing and co-regulation has been learnt and shown. If you know, we know this, we know that we work with couples and teach them these skills. So if someone was avoidant and was anxious and they did work with us, I'm certain that we can, you know, create the connection that's needed. But I think if people leave it too long, it's where the relationship can have damage.
Collateral damage from all the pushing and pulling. Yeah,
it causes too much. Over a period of time.
It's a trauma bond, you know, and like just to speak and give context to a trauma bond, essentially you're the most attracted and most drawn into the person who effortlessly triggers your stuff. And it's no mistake, like it's not a mistake that we are so magnetized to this person that triggers us, because we are nature, and just like nature, we're seeking to come into balance all the time. We're seeking to heal and be whole. So to have ourselves attracted to someone that can trigger us, it's actually a beautiful, painful gift, because to heal our stuff, we have to be able to see it and we have to be able to feel it. So nature is the best. But it's totally healable when there is a level of awareness and willingness.
Absolutely, the willingness is the big part here. You know, when two people come together and are willing to work on their relationship together to create secure attachment,
Yeah.
it can be done. But there has to be the willingness. And even if it is just one person that's secure and one person that's either avoidant or anxious, that can definitely work.
Oh yeah, that actually is quite a good dynamic. If the secure person can stay quite grounded and solid, then the other person gets to kind of wobble around, but get the experience of being with someone who shows up, leans in, doesn't withdraw, and that can be very healing. But what I know to be true is secure people tend to date secure people because they're not interested in the drama.
That's right. And I think that's so true. And I think what, you know, in my case, working with so many men that are anxious, because obviously the avoidants are very hard to work with. It's like startling a deer. It's having the insecure person or the anxious person not fall in. It's like, can they stay put? And the same with the avoidant man is, can he stay put and not run?
Oh, you mean like the way to heal?
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think that both of them, the healing comes when they learn how to stay still. The anxious one, I know this, I want to run towards, give me more, cling, 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 let's fix now. If I can just stay still and self-regulate, that's going to support my healing. The avoidant, I got to go, I'm getting out of here, this is not safe.
Too much.
This is too much. If they can just stay still and again self-regulate through what's coming up in their body, know that it's safe to stay still.
And with that, what typically happens is when that dynamic of the push-pull isn't happening, or the anxious person or the avoidant person meets someone that's secure, it's almost like this doesn't feel very intense or loving. And it's like, this is actually what security feels like, is a level of like, it's not fireworks all the time, because it isn't pulling this wound or this attachment stuff. Like the magnets aren't banging and going off all the time. It's very much like, oh, this is what it can feel like.
I don't think it's not that it doesn't feel loving, it's that it doesn't feel passionate. Because someone with an insecure attachment pattern, they have coupled love and connection with intensity,
True.
with chaos, with
True.
excitement, with infatuation. And when you meet someone who's quite secure, it can feel boring. Because the chaos and the intensity is not there. Often I'll speak to women, it's like, she'll tell me, I just don't think he's the one. Like, he's a great guy, he's super open and vulnerable and I like him, but there's just no chemistry. And it's like, that can be true. That can totally be true. But is it possible that you have coupled intensity with compatibility?
Yeah.
You know, so it's when you meet someone, if you resonate with feeling insecure in relationship, anxious or avoidant, then when you do meet someone, if you meet someone that is secure, notice that pattern for yourself. Notice if there is a tendency to be like, not the one, you know, because I don't really buy into the one. The one is who you decide to create something and collaborate on something amazing with. But I really recommend giving the boring, the secure person, give it some space. Doesn't mean you have to go all in right away, but it's like, could this be how I circuit break my pattern of chasing high intensity connection?
Yeah, I agree. It's like you can't just put the pizza in the oven and then a minute later open it up and it's like, oh, didn't work. It's like, give it some time, you know, get to know each other, you know?
So I think it really takes, when you're healing these wounds, takes a level of self-awareness. You have to be aware of your patterns. This is why you can do so much good healing work when you're not in a relationship, because you want to become a detective to your own bullshit. Like, you have to know the patterns that you buy into so you can catch them in their tracks. That's how you start to kind of like reframe and, I guess, transcend your own behavior by being aware of it.
Yeah, call yourself out. Be able to observe. And that, to me, that's why I made the Embodied Man mentorship, is I really wanted men to be able to observe themselves and not get caught up in the other. It's like to become an embodied man that's grounded, solid, regulated. I'm aware of my stuff. I see that. I understand my attachment. I understand my archetypes. I understand my wounds. I understand like my inner child and the immature masculine part of me. And it's like, it all exists in me. It's not whether it does or doesn't, it's how does it. It's all in the how, not the why. What's good, but the how. And then once they get to know that, it's then they're ready to do some deeper work. Then they're more ready for a relationship and to be in one and create one, not just wait for it to happen. But I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just waiting for the one, or like they're just going to show up and it's going to be perfect. And it's like, you make the relationship. You don't just expect to just have something drop into your lap. It's not just, it doesn't work like that. You create it and build it together.
Absolutely. So I think that's a really important part that you've highlighted, that when you're healing this stuff, the first part is awareness. It's learning about your own shit so that you can call yourself out and call yourself forward. And like you've done with the embodied man, it's kind of like getting men, and I work with women, but getting them to have enough awareness so they can be ready for some deeper work. And so when I am doing deeper work with women, it's really about providing them with the experience that is missing from childhood. So remember those 5 conditions this little child wasn't attuned to. They weren't validated. They weren't seen or reassured. It's like in therapy, what we can now do with people is give them that experience. Like, yes, I'm not your partner, but I can provide you and your inner child with an experience of nourishment and attunement, and we can start to actually heal those pieces, regardless of if you're in a relationship or not. We can start the work, because you just need another who knows how to guide this work.
And who is grounded and regulated.
Yes.
You know, because
who is secure and solid. It's like,
yes,
who provides the stable base. This is how like a lot of attachment theory talk about it for the child. When the little child has a parent who is available, it provides this secure base so they can confidently go and explore the world. They feel secure to leave the base because they know there's someone here.
Yes.
So as therapists, we get to, through the therapeutic relationship, we provide secure base so that confidence can start to cultivate.
Absolutely. And that, yeah, I think that's the magic of it. That's why
therapy.
Yeah, I love this. I absolutely love this. And it's not me doing it for them as much as they're unfolding and becoming more aware and bringing their own self, organic self, out of themselves and reorganizing their beliefs and their structures internally, just so they can be more of just who they are. I want that for people. I want people to have epic relationships, thriving lives, and often we've got the handbrakes on with stuff from the past, old
fear,
wounds, guilt, shame that we hide, deny and repress. It can be let go of, and processed through, not just bypass, like, oh, that was in the past, we'll just leave it there.
Or toxic positivity, like, I'm just love and light, where's my conscious man or woman? Like affirmations. It's like we actually do need to look in the shadows and like tend to these dysregulated parts. And as therapists, this is the work that we offer, and it's so valuable. But I think, like, the title of this podcast, right, it's going to be how you heal your attachment wounding in relationship, because I know for myself, so much self-development. Started studying psychology when I was 23. I'm nearly 34, so it's a decade of learning at the level of like academia, then coming into coaching and training, and just I've done so much self-development, and I've learned so much, and I have made huge gains. However, the deepest healing that I have ever done, and the way I can now put my hand up and say I feel secure and solid, has been the result of being in a secure relationship, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because yes, a therapist can attune to you, nourish you, nurture you, guide you, but actually being in the experience of having that, because your partner becomes your attachment figure. your parents are your attachment figure, or whoever your primary caregivers are, your therapist never really becomes your attachment figure. Your partner does.
Yeah.
And if you have relational wounds, you will attempt to make your partner your parent, to try and heal those parts of you that were created in childhood. When you get the opportunity, so we can speak about our relationship. I meet Lindsay. I still have a lot of sensitivity, a lot of anxiety, can't really repair, lots of just feeling insecure and anxious. And over time, as those parts would come up for me, and I've learned how to expose my parts through the work I've done, but I would expose them to Lindsay with a level of vulnerability and responsibility. But because Lindsay brought his more secure attachment to this relationship, he was able to hold my parts. So when I'm dysregulated and freaking out, and I let him in on that, and he holds them with compassion and holds them with love, that creates a softening in the body. Something just lifts. Like there's a healing in having your hurt and scared held and nurtured and loved by your attachment figure.
Yeah, big time. It's like, and it's felt like that, you know. If I'm speaking from my experience in the relationship, it's been like the level of, I would say, self-revealing that you always had is one of the things that has made it mean that I know what's happening. If that makes sense.
You mean my capacity to self-reveal has given you a level of like reassurance. You know where I'm at.
Yeah, and that really helps for me as someone who's more anxious and sensitive. It's like I'm not second questioning. There's not so much me laboring over where's she at, what is she thinking, whatever feeling, whatever it is. It's like there's a level of like knowing, and that for me has been the practice of me doing that as well, knowing that it's actually safe to do so, you know. And there's a lot around, for me it's a lot around safety in relationship, and I didn't know that, you know. So it's like to have the experience means that it's just like just feeling more and more grounded, more and more secure. And the biggest takeaway for that for me has been being in a secure relationship has allowed me to take on other things in my life that are important to me, that when I'm in a relationship dynamic that's dysfunctional means that I'm constantly putting the fire out of, fires out means that I'm constantly working on that and not working on furthering other things.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a big part of this where if people have lived in the dysfunction of a relationship, it's like, oh, a relationship is not for me. They can get to that point. I know
relationship is hard.
Yeah, relationship is hard. Relationships aren't for me. Something's up with me, or I just prefer to be alone. There's those people as well. And it's like, I don't think anyone really wants to be alone. It's just safer to not be in relationship. And the flip side of that I've learned about, which is around the ghost figures, is so many men want to be the partner that their mum never had, so they can complete the cycle of their first attachment. So their first love is their mum, and by being the man that their mum never had, so I'll be this ideal person, this ideal man, and I'll go out into the world and try and be that, and then I'll be it in this relationship. Well, this person is not my mum, and this is why it can keep happening for men. So they keep picking partners and treating them like, and trying to be the man that their mum never had to complete the fairy tale that she never had, because it's our first love. It's fucking interesting.
It's really interesting how it can play out so differently, like for me, when I was feeling more anxious and insecure and my mum was single, like what I was looking for, I was always trying to make my partner my dad. I was desperately trying to make my partner the ghost figure, like to fill that role, to give me the unconditional love that I thought I never received. I was really wanting my partner to be daddy. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that until like down the line. And I was like, right, I'm trying to make my partner caretake for my big emotions, no matter what I bring. He better love me no matter what. Like, just keep loving me. And it was actually, I don't know if I've told this story before, I was having a fight with a partner and I'd stormed away from him and I was crying and I was sitting on rocks looking out over the beach and I was so upset. And then I was watching down on the sand this like little girl, maybe 5, have this huge tantrum, and a man I'm assuming is her father was containing her. Like, she wanted to hit him and run away, like big tantrum, and he's just holding her, like just trying to keep her safe. And in that moment, I was like, that's what I've been doing my whole life. Like, I've been trying to have these big tantrums and have a man just love me and hold me and contain me no matter what. But it's really dysfunctional to try and make your partner your parent. Crushes polarity, flattens polarity, like sexual intimacy, like.
Yeah.
And so coming into having that realization was probably one of the first steps where I realized I needed to work on my attachment wounding. Like, earning my secure attachment was going to be a worthy endeavor if I wanted to have like an adult relationship, if I wanted to be met as a woman.
Yeah. And I think it's a part for all of us that we all embark on at some point, even if we are secure. It's like knowing this and knowing this about ourselves gives us more capacity, more self-love, more acceptance, better ability to observe ourselves and know ourselves such that we can show up more fully in relationship, you know, whether we're a parent as well, because it's just like when you become then a parent, it's, my attunement and all the things that you listed is what my child needs from me.
Well, as a parent, you're setting up your child's relationship blueprint.
Yes.
So it's like we do this work for ourselves, we do it for our relationship, but we do it for our future little humans. Like, that's how we stop the generational patterns from going any further. And it really seems to be our generation who are saying no more. Like, self-development is so popular. Like, even though the self-labeling, I don't agree with it, it's like it's so freaking awesome that people are interested in this.
Yeah.
They want to learn, they want better relationships.
Yeah, and they know that now it is actually a skill and we have much more time together. I watched something that I think it might have even been Dave Chappelle shared recently about, you know, how much time couples really spent together pre-phones. So if I left to go to work at 6:30 in the morning and came back at 6:30 at night, we're really just getting 2 hours a night together over 40 years isn't as much as, say, a 10-year relationship where we work together every day, you know? So it's like we're also in communication a lot more now too, and have
which is probably a good thing as well as a bad thing.
Yeah, well, it really just shows what is happening for our attachment, you know? Like, it shows us how attached we are or aren't in relationship.
So I think that feels pretty well-rounded. Like, the healing work, it's firstly, you want to do your own self-development and establish a level of awareness. You want to become a detective to your patterns so you can start to call them out. You then can, once you have a level of awareness, like, deeper therapy is a great option, to have someone give you the experience of having these really valid needs met. And then the next part would be healing in relationship, collaborating with someone who is willing to do this work with you. And if you're in relationship now and it's like, well, we've been together so long, I don't know if we can just, it's like you get to change the standard.
Yeah.
Once you start learning about this stuff, you can bring that conversation to your partner. It's like, hey, we've been doing it this way for a decade. Are you willing? Like, I love you. Let's work together. But what I love as well is when a couple first gets together, if they start doing this from the beginning, because this is what we did. We came together and we have been working on creating and healing from day one. And it's why I believe our relationship is as solid as it is. There's like no water under the bridge. There's zero resentment. There's nothing that either of us are harboring because we've had the skills of relationship from the beginning. So
Yes.
it's really about learning the skills of relationship as we keep circling back round to every episode. It's like, what are you learning?
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to all those episodes, please drop back to the start and start back from the beginning.
Honestly, it's all there, which is like, this is our gift, I guess, to be able to share in this way.
Yeah, let you guys into what we do for work and what we do in our relationship. It's not just a highlight reel on socials. It's legitimately a highlight reel that we get to work on. It's like,
Yeah. So if you guys are interested in attachment healing, if this has sparked your interest, I have a program called The Embodied Woman that teaches women exactly that, how to heal their attachment wounds and learn relational skills. Lindsay has The Embodied Man.
yeah, Embodied Man Mentorship, an 8-week program for men just to go really deep, really, really deep. And as always, men's group every week if you're wanting to connect in with other men. And that is also a beautiful way to heal as well, heal the father wound or heal the attachment to men.
It even fosters secure attachment in relationship because men who are connected to other men and not just their partner, they feel more sovereign. So it's like, I think men's group is amazing. We also have the Embodied Union Couples program, and this would be for couples who want to do this work and they want to do it together. I highly recommend if you're in a relationship and your partner is willing, do it together. Like, what an epic experience to have. And this program is it's my favorite. So I think that covers it. Anything to add?
That's it for today. If you don't already follow us on Instagram, Embodied Union,
YouTube,
yeah,
all the things.
yeah.
Thanks, sweet man.
Love you, critter.